Wardenting. If you are over 60 and you start your morning with this popular drink, please listen carefully to what I am about to tell you, because what I discovered from a Japanese doctor last year has completely changed how I talk to my patients about memory loss. And this morning habit that millions of people think is perfectly harmless, could be erasing your memories faster than you realize. I have seen this pattern in patient after patient, and the connection is so strong that I felt I had to share it with you today. Dorothy, a 68-year-old retired librarian from Wisconsin, sat in my office last spring with tears streaming down her face. She grabbed my hand and said, "Dr. Harrison, I forgot my granddaughter's name yesterday. My own granddaughter. The little girl I helped raise." I looked at her face and I could not remember her name. I sat there watching this sweet woman sob, and I could feel the fear radiating off her. She told me she had been awake all night staring at the ceiling, terrified of what was happening to her mind. Dorothy had been drinking this every single morning for over 40 years. She thought it was helping her wake up. She thought it was good for her. And nobody, not a single doctor, had ever warned her about what it was doing to her brain. I have been practicing medicine for over 30 years. I have seen thousands of patients walk through my door worried about their memory, worried about losing their independence, worried about becoming a burden on their families. And for most of my career, I gave them the same advice everyone else gave. I told them to do crossword puzzles. I told them to stay social. I told them to exercise. But I never connected the dots between their morning routine and their fading memories, not until I learned what a Japanese physician had discovered about this common drink, and what it does to the aging brain. What he showed me changed everything I thought I knew. Dorothy was not my only patient struggling. Robert, 72, a former factory supervisor from Michigan, came to me 6 months ago looking defeated. His shoulders were slumped, and his eyes had lost their spark. He sat down heavily in the chair and said, "Doctor, I used to manage 50 people. I kept schedules in my head, remembered every worker's name, knew exactly which machine needed maintenance and when. Now I walk into a room and forget why I went there. My wife has to remind me to take my pills. My kids look at me like I am already gone." His voice cracked on that last sentence. He told me he had caught his son researching nursing homes on the computer last week. That broke something inside him. Robert had been drinking this same thing every morning since he was 25 years old. Almost 50 years of the same habit. What both Dorothy and Robert did not know, what I did not know until recently, is that this morning drink creates a cycle in your brain that is like leaving a faucet running in a house with old pipes. At first, nothing seems wrong. The water flows, everything works. But over months and years, that constant pressure starts to wear down the pipes from the inside. Small leaks develop. The pressure builds in places it should not. And one day, you turn on the faucet and barely a trickle comes out. That is what this drink does to the delicate systems in your brain that form and retrieve memories. The damage happens so slowly you do not notice until one day you reach for a name and it is simply not there. The Japanese doctor who opened my eyes to this connection had spent 15 years studying why certain populations age so differently. He had traveled to villages throughout Japan, interviewing elders, documenting their habits, and measuring their cognitive function. He noticed something remarkable about the elders in traditional Japanese communities compared to Western populations. Their memories stayed sharper longer. They remained independent well into their 80s and 90s. Many of them were still running households, managing finances, and caring for their great-grandchildren at ages when Americans were already in assisted living facilities. And when he looked at their morning routines, he found one striking difference. They did not start their day the way most Americans do. They did not reach for this drink that we have been told our whole lives is harmless or even beneficial. Let me tell you about Margaret, 70 years old, a grandmother of 6 from Ohio. She came to see me because she had started getting lost on her way home from church, a route she had driven for 35 years. She would be driving along and suddenly nothing looked familiar. It was like someone had rearranged all the streets overnight, she told me, her voice shaking. I would panic and have to pull over and call my daughter to come find me. I would sit in my car gripping the steering wheel, crying because I did not know where I was. Margaret drank this every morning, 2 large glasses. She thought she was being healthy. She thought she was doing something good for her body. She had read articles that said it was full of vitamins. No one told her about the other ingredient that was quietly stealing her memories. Here is what I need you to understand. Your brain is like a vast library, and your memories are the books on the shelves. Every day your brain has a cleaning crew that comes in during certain hours to organize the books, repair the damaged ones, and make sure everything is in its right place. This cleaning crew works best in certain conditions. It needs quiet. It needs stability. It needs a steady, calm environment to do its delicate work. This morning drink interferes with that cleaning crew. It is like hiring a team to organize your library, but then blasting loud music all morning so they cannot concentrate on their work. Day after day, year after year, the books get more disorganized. Some fall off the shelves, some get damaged beyond repair. And eventually, when you go looking for a specific memory, you cannot find it because the whole system has fallen into chaos. I want to tell you about William, 65, a retired postal worker from Pennsylvania. William was the kind of man who never forgot a face or a name. He had walked the same route for 30 years and knew every family on his street. He remembered birthdays, anniversaries, the names of everyone's pets. His coworkers used to joke that William had a photographic memory. He was the one everyone went to when they needed to remember something important. When he came to me, he was a shadow of that man. "Dr. Harrison," he said, "my mind used to be a steel trap. Now it is more like a sieve. Everything just falls right through." He told me about the morning he forgot his own address. He was filling out a form at the pharmacy and went completely blank. 27 years at the same house, and he could not remember the street number. William had been drinking this every single morning, large amounts. He thought it was giving him energy. He thought it was keeping him sharp. It was doing the opposite. The Japanese doctor explained to me that in the aging brain, there is a delicate balance that must be maintained. Think of it like a garden with a sophisticated irrigation system. The water needs to flow to certain areas at certain times in certain amounts. When everything is balanced, the garden thrives, the flowers bloom, the vegetables grow, the trees stay strong. But when you introduce something that throws off that balance, that floods some areas while leaving others parched, the garden starts to die, not all at once, slowly, section by section. The roots weaken, the soil erodes, the plants that once stood tall begin to wilt. That is exactly what this morning drink does to your brain's natural rhythms. It creates a flood where there should be a gentle stream. Patricia, 67, a former school teacher from Indiana, told me something that broke my heart. She said, "Doctor, I spent 40 years teaching children to read. I could recite poetry from memory. I knew every student's name, their parents' names, their siblings' names. I could remember what grade a student got on a test from 5 years ago. Last week, I could not remember my own phone number. I have had the same phone number for 25 years. Patricia started crying right there in my office. She buried her face in her hands and her whole body shook with sobs. And then she said something that hit me like a punch to the chest. She said, "I feel like I am disappearing, doctor. Piece by piece, I am just disappearing." Patricia drank this every morning without fail. She had been doing it for as long as she could remember. It was as much a part of her morning as brushing her teeth. But here is what gave me hope and what I need to share with you before we go any further. Because I know right now you might be feeling scared. You might be thinking about your own morning routine. You might be wondering if it is already too late. But what the Japanese doctor showed me, and what I have now seen in my own patients, is that the brain has a remarkable ability to heal itself. It is like a garden that has been neglected. Yes, there is damage. Yes, some plants have died. But when you remove the thing causing the damage and give the garden what it truly needs, new growth can happen, sometimes faster than you would ever believe possible. The brain is always trying to repair itself. We just have to stop getting in its way. Dorothy, the retired librarian I told you about at the beginning, she made a change, one simple change, and 14 days later she called me crying again. But this time they were tears of joy. She said, "Dr. Harrison, I remembered, I was sitting with my granddaughter, and her name just came to me. Emma, my sweet little Emma." I grabbed her and held her so tight. I remembered. She told me that her granddaughter looked up at her and asked why she was crying. Dorothy said, "Because I love you, Emma." And she said her granddaughter smiled that beautiful smile and said, "I love you too, Grandma." Dorothy had stopped drinking this morning. She had replaced it with something that actually supports the brain, instead of attacking it. Now what I am about to share with you is so simple that you might not believe it could make such a difference. When I first heard it, I was skeptical too. After 30 years of medical training and practice, I thought I knew what helped the brain and what hurt it. But the research from Japan, combined with what I have now witnessed in my own patients, has completely convinced me. And it starts with understanding exactly what this morning drink is doing to your brain at a cellular level. This drink creates a spike in your body. Think of it like revving a car engine to the maximum. First thing in the morning when the engine is still cold. Sure, the car moves, but you are wearing down the engine in ways you cannot see. The parts that should last for hundreds of thousands of miles start to degrade. The timing gets thrown off. Small problems become big problems, and one day the engine just will not start anymore. That is what happens when you flood your system with this drink every morning. Your brain, which needs a gentle, steady supply of energy to function properly, gets hit with a surge it was not designed to handle, especially as you get older. The machinery of your brain becomes more sensitive with each passing year. What it could handle at 40 becomes damaging at 60. The protective barriers in your brain become more fragile with age. It is like the difference between a young tree that can bend in the wind and an older tree whose branches have become more brittle. The wind did not change. The tree changed. And what might have been fine for your brain at 30 or 40 becomes genuinely damaging at 60, 70, or 80. This morning drink creates stress on systems that can no longer handle that stress. It is like asking an older roof to withstand a hurricane. Maybe it held up fine 20 years ago, but now every storm causes more damage. Every morning surge takes more of a toll than it did the year before. The Japanese doctor shared research with me showing that after age 60, the brain's ability to regulate these surges decreases significantly. The cells that protect your memory centers become more vulnerable. The connections between neurons become more easily disrupted. And this morning drink acts like a daily assault on these already vulnerable systems. He showed me brain scans that compared people who drank this every morning with those who did not. The differences were striking. The regions responsible for memory and recall showed visible changes in the regular drinkers. It was like looking at two different maps of the same territory, one clear and detailed, the other faded and incomplete. Robert, the former factory supervisor, he made the change too. 3 weeks after stopping this morning drink and replacing it with something that actually helps the brain, he called me. His voice sounded different, stronger, more like the man who once managed 50 workers. He said, "Dr. Harrison, I remembered every item on the grocery list today, 12 items. I did not write them down. I just remembered them. My wife thought I was playing a trick on her. She kept checking my pockets for a piece of paper." Robert laughed for the first time in months. It was like watching someone come back to life. He told me that his son had stopped researching nursing homes. He said his family was looking at him differently now, with hope instead of worry. The Japanese doctor emphasized something crucial that I want you to understand. Your brain has a rhythm, like the tides of the ocean. There are times when it needs to be active and times when it needs to rest and repair. This morning drink disrupts that rhythm in a fundamental way. Imagine trying to sleep while someone keeps turning the lights on and off. Your body would never get proper rest. Your brain is the same way. It needs certain conditions to do its repair work, to consolidate memories, to clear out the waste products that accumulate during the day. This drink interferes with all of that. It throws off the timing. It confuses the signals. And over time the damage accumulates. What should you drink instead? This is where it gets beautiful in its simplicity. What the Japanese elders drink in the morning, what I now recommend to all my patients over 60, is plain warm water, with a small amount of lemon. That is it. That is the whole secret. I know it sounds too simple. I know you might be thinking that cannot possibly make a difference, but let me explain why it works. Because the science behind it is actually quite elegant. Warm water with lemon is like giving your brain a gentle morning stretch instead of throwing it into a sprint. It hydrates the cells without shocking them. The lemon provides gentle support that helps your body's natural cleaning processes. It wakes up your system slowly, the way your body was designed to wake up. It is like the difference between waking up to soft morning light versus having someone blast an air horn in your ear. Both will wake you up, but one prepares your brain for a productive day while the other puts it in a state of stress from the very first moment. The gentle approach protects those delicate memory systems. The harsh approach damages them. Margaret, the grandmother who kept getting lost on her way home from church, she made this simple switch. 21 days later, she drove to church and back without a single moment of confusion. She called me that evening, and I could hear the relief in her voice. "Doctor," she said, "I knew exactly where I was the whole time. Every turn was familiar again. It was like someone had put the map back in my head. I knew where I was going. I knew where I had been. I was not lost anymore." Margaret wept with relief. Her children wept with relief. Her daughter told me later that she had been preparing to take away her mother's car keys. One simple change in her morning routine, and the fog started to lift. The map came back. The warm water and lemon works, because it supports what your brain is already trying to do, instead of fighting against it. Think of it like this. Your brain is a skilled craftsman trying to do delicate work. This morning drink is like giving that craftsman a jackhammer when he needs a fine brush. Sure, he can try to work with it, but the results will be clumsy and damaged. Warm water with lemon gives your brain the fine brush it needs. It allows the delicate work of memory formation and retrieval to happen the way it should. Your brain knows how to do this work. It just needs you to stop interfering with the process. William, the retired postal worker who used to remember everyone on his route, made the change too. 18 days later, he walked through his neighborhood and greeted 12 people by name, people he had not been able to remember for months. He told me, "Dr. Harrison, it is like the names were there all along, just hiding behind a door I could not open. Now the door is open again." He said he stood in his front yard and watched his neighbors wave back at him, and he felt like himself again for the first time in years. William's wife told me she got her husband back. The man she married 40 years ago started showing up again. The man who remembered everything. The man with the steel trap mind. I want to address something important. I know that giving up this morning drink feels hard. I know it is a habit you have had for years, maybe decades. I know it is comforting and familiar. That first glass in the morning has probably been part of your routine for longer than you can remember. But I need you to think about what is more important. That morning habit, or being able to remember your grandchildren's names. That routine, or being able to find your way home. That drink, or your independence. Patricia, the former teacher who felt like she was disappearing piece by piece, made the switch, and she told me something that I think about every single day. She said, "Dr. Harrison, giving up that drink was nothing compared to what I was losing. I would give up 1,000 drinks to have my mind back, and now, just 3 weeks later, I feel like myself again." I remembered a poem yesterday, a whole poem I used to teach my students. It just came back to me, line by line, like it had been waiting for me to let it out. She recited part of it for me right there in my office, her voice strong and sure, the same voice she had used to teach children for 4 decades. "Here is what I want you to do. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, I want you to try something different. Instead of reaching for that usual drink, heat some water until it is comfortably warm, not hot, not cold, just warm. Squeeze in half a lemon and drink it slowly. Give your brain the gentle start it needs. Do this for 14 days, just 14 days, and pay attention to how you feel. Notice if the fog starts to lift. Notice if names and words come a little easier. Notice if you feel more like yourself. Keep a little journal if you want. Write down the small victories, the name you remembered, the errand you did not forget, the story you told without losing the thread. The Japanese doctor told me that in traditional communities, the elders are revered for their wisdom and their memories. They carry the stories of their families and their villages. They remember the old ways, the important lessons, the connections between generations. Grandparents can tell their grandchildren about their great-great-grandparents. They remember the recipes, the songs, the history that binds a family together. They do this not because they are different from us, but because they have not been doing the thing that damages the brain's ability to hold on to memories. They have not been starting their days with this drink that Western culture has convinced us is harmless or even helpful. Dorothy sent me a letter last month. She wrote, "Dr. Harrison, I am reading to my granddaughter Emma every night now. I remember the characters. I remember where we left off in the story. I remember the voices I use for each one. Emma says I am the best storyteller she knows. She says she wants to remember stories like Grandma does when she grows up." Dorothy underlined that last sentence 3 times. I am the best storyteller she knows. That is what became possible when she made one simple change to her morning routine, one simple change, and she got to be the grandmother she always wanted to be. I want you to imagine something. Imagine it is 1 year from now. You made the change. You stopped drinking that thing every morning and replaced it with warm water and lemon. Your mind is clearer than it has been in years. You remember the names of everyone at the family gathering. You know exactly where you put your keys. You can tell stories about your past without losing the thread halfway through. Your children look at you with admiration instead of worry. Your grandchildren want to spend time with you because you remember the things that matter to them. You remember their favorite colors, their best friends' names, what they told you about school last week. That future is possible. It starts with tomorrow morning. Robert told me something recently that stuck with me. He said, "Doctor, I realized that drink was stealing my memories 1 cup at a time. I was paying for it at the store, and then paying for it again with my mind. The worst deal I ever made." Robert is now teaching his grandchildren how to play chess, something he thought he would never be able to do again. He remembers the strategies. He can think several moves ahead. The man who could not remember why he walked into a room is now beating his 10-year-old grandson at chess. His grandson tells everyone at school that his grandpa is the smartest person he knows. The morning you wake up and realize you remember everything from yesterday, everything from last week, the names and faces and stories that make up your life. That morning will make every day of warm water and lemon worth it. It is such a small change. It costs almost nothing, but the value of what you are protecting, the memories of your children taking their first steps, of your wedding day, of your parents and grandparents, of every precious moment that makes you who you are, that value is beyond measure. Those memories are your treasure. They are the proof that you have lived a life worth living. Margaret drives herself to church every Sunday now. She knows the route by heart again, but more than that, she remembers the names of everyone in her congregation. She remembers who is sick, who needs prayers, who celebrated a birthday that week. She remembers the stories people tell her. She remembers to follow up, to ask how the grandchild's recital went, to check if the surgery went well. She told me, Dr. Harrison, I feel like a member of my community again, not just a visitor who forgot where she was. Margaret's family no longer worries when she goes out alone. One simple change gave her back her independence. The drink I have been talking about, the one that the Japanese doctor warned about, the one that Dorothy and Robert and Margaret and William and Patricia all gave up, is sugary juice. Orange juice, apple juice, grape juice, all those concentrated fruit juices that millions of Americans drink every single morning thinking they are doing something healthy. They are not. That sugar surge first thing in the morning, especially in aging brains, creates chaos in the delicate systems responsible for memory and cognition. It floods the brain with more than it can handle. It disrupts the natural rhythms. It interferes with the repair processes. And day after day, year after year, it erases memories that should last a lifetime. The Japanese communities that maintain their sharp memories into extreme old age do not start their days with concentrated sugar. They start with warm water, sometimes with tea, sometimes with a little citrus. They give their brains the gentle, hydrating start that supports memory instead of attacking it. It is not complicated. It is not expensive. It is not some exotic treatment available only to the wealthy. It is warm water with lemon, available to anyone, accessible to everyone, effective for all. The simplest solutions are often the most powerful. Patricia wrote me a note last week. She said, Dr. Harrison, I recited that poem to my great-grandchildren last Sunday, the whole thing from memory. They asked me how I could remember all those words, and I told them that their great-grandmother used to be a teacher, and teachers never really forget. They looked at me like I was magic, but I know the real magic was just giving up that morning juice and letting my brain heal. She told me her great-grandchildren now ask her to recite poems every time they visit. She is building new memories with them, while holding on to all the old ones. I am asking you to try this for 14 days, just 2 weeks. Replace your morning juice with warm water and lemon. Give your brain the gentle start it deserves. Notice the changes. Notice the clarity returning. Notice the names coming back. Notice the fog lifting. And then, when you feel the difference, when you remember something you thought was lost forever, you will understand why I had to share this with you today. Your memories are the most precious things you own. They are the story of your life. They connect you to everyone you love and everything you have experienced. They are worth protecting. They are worth one simple change to your morning routine, and the beautiful truth is that it is not too late. Your brain wants to heal. It wants to hold on to your memories. It just needs you to stop flooding it with sugar every morning and start giving it what it truly needs. Dorothy, Robert, Margaret, William, Patricia, they all made this change. They all got something precious back, and now I am passing this knowledge to you. What you do with it is up to you. But I truly hope, that tomorrow morning you will reach for warm water with lemon instead of that glass of juice. Your memories are counting on you. Your family is counting on you. And 14 days from now, you might just be calling someone you love to tell them you remember.